and then have a statement of necessity.
Certainly will. As chairman of the board, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. By my watch, it shows to be 9:01 on Central Time. I'll go ahead and read the statement of necessity.
Well, that's for Maria.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead then.
No problem.
Great. Good morning, all. I'm going to go ahead and read the statement of necessity. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors, which is taking place by electronic means utilizing the WebEx teleconference application on Thursday, February 18th, 2021. Notice of this meeting was posted to the board's website. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to TCA 844-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. Further, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to address regularly scheduled matters of the board in the most safe manner due to COVID-19. All voting will be conducted by roll call. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. I'll call the roll real quick, and then we can move on to adopting some items. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kaufman.
Here, present.
Mr. Dillahay. Mr. Dillahay, you may be on mute. Okay, I can't hear Mr. Dillahay, so let's see, we'll come back to him. So, Mr. Lingerfeld.
Present.
And Mr. Martin.
Present.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
One more effort there to see if we can get Jackie to unmute himself. I'm showing himself to be muted at the moment. But regardless, we do show him being present there, just not verbally. I think we can go ahead and proceed. We've got a quorum there of the board regardless. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, sir. And Mr. Kaufman, your camera is on. I don't know if you wanted to turn that off or not. We've typically gone no cameras, just kind of reminder there for other folks' bandwidth purposes. That got it. Okay, the next item we have here is to adopt the agenda.
That's right. We need to adopt the agenda that was published on February 12th of 2021. I trust that all the members have a copy of the agenda as well as those visiting with us today. I would ask for a motion for adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would make such motion with the statement that the chair has the ability to manipulate items as necessary should we have anything arise during the course of the meeting.
Okay, motion stated. Is there a second on that? Either by Kevin or Jackie? Or both. There we go.
And can you hear me?
Yeah, Jackie, much better. Thank you.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on adopting the agenda as moved? All right, hearing none, if we could get a roll call, please.
Sir, Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay.
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved. Okay, with that, next on the agenda as adopted, we've got review and approve the October 2020 minutes. I trust that Members of the board here have had an opportunity to review those minutes as published by staff. Is there any comments, revisions, modifications needed?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I forwarded 2 revisions to Mr. Schultz, and I assume that they were made because I did not receive any corrected document. Is that correct, Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, yes, sir, they were corrected. My apologies for not resending those back to you, but that we do have them in a corrected version, which we'll post. When we post the minutes for that meeting, we'll have that corrected version.
Thank you very much. And that said, Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
A motion has been made for approval of the minutes as modified. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes as modified. Any further comments? All right, hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay.
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Thank you, sirs.
All right, with that, the minutes of the October 2020 as modified have been approved by the board. Next on the agenda, we're showing the legal report.
Good morning, everybody. Let's see, we've got sort of a short legal report this morning. And I would go ahead and start with number 1. Number 1 is 2020-085-421. And I'm just going to give you a brief summary because, as you can see, I gave you a lot of summary here. This complainant basically found out there was a discrepancy or an overlap in the boundaries between them and their neighbor when they had a survey completed in October of last year. Respondent had conducted a survey in 2019 of the neighbor's property with its boundary at issue. And it basically takes issue that respondent did not notify them about the boundary discrepancy. And our statutes, based on my review, require surveyors to notify affected adjoiners when any major discrepancy is discovered during the conduct of a boundary survey. So based on that, my recommendation is a letter of warning, considering this respondent has been licensed since 1981, almost 40 years without a complaint. But I am open to hearing anybody's opinion as to whether this might call for a more serious violation. This is the first time I've dealt with an issue like this or a violation like this. I gave you a very long, detailed response summary from the respondent. I wasn't sure if that would change anything, and I figured you guys would be the best to better understand if this respondent should have known and really should have notified this complainant. So I leave it open to you guys.
Great, thank you. I trust that the members of the board here have had an opportunity to read through the legal report, specifically item number 1 at the moment. It is quite lengthy and very detailed. Thank you, Erica, on that. I'll just give you my first initial thoughts on it, and then I'll throw it over to the other members of the board here for discussion. To me, there was the main issue of notification of the adjoining owner, which Erica noted is required on a survey if they find a significant discrepancy based on TCA 62-18-124D, which states that a licensed land surveyor shall notify affected adjoiners when a major apparent discrepancy is discovered during
Mr. Kaufman. Hey, Mr.
Yes.
Kaufman, I'm sorry. Well, there's a lot of feedback coming from somebody's microphone. Erica, if you're not going to be actively speaking, would you mind go ahead and turning yours off? We'll see if that cuts it. Thank you.
That's much better. Thank you. I appreciate that, Michael. So again, I was referring back to TCA 62-18-124D about notification of the adjoiners, and it's my understanding that that is the basis of the complaint. So I kind of wanted to address that first. and then see if any members of the board wanted to take this complaint any further. Based on what I've read of the summary, the survey was conducted. There was apparently an overlap that was noted on the original survey, and as best I can tell, there was not notification made to the adjoiner, which on the surface appears to be in violation of said TCA that I mentioned before. And obviously the respondent has no history of disciplinary actions. There was follow-up again, obviously, when a later survey was conducted, which we'll discuss a little bit further. But in my opinion, just on the initial complaint, it does appear to be in violation of TCA. I'm comfortable with a letter of warning up front, unless other members of the boards think otherwise, and I'll throw it over to Tim for your initial thoughts.
Jay, basically, my review reveals the same thing that you have determined. I think that in this case, due to the fact that the respondent has not had any history of complaints over his 40-year tenure of being a licensee, I think he made an effort, but he just didn't quite hit the TCA just right the way it should be. And oftentimes our registrants are not as familiar with that particular section as maybe they should be. So I really would agree that I think a letter of warning is appropriate.
Thank you, Tim. Jackie, any thoughts on your behalf? Not sure that that's coming through with Jackie. Maybe some technical issues there. Kevin, any thoughts on your part?
Yeah, I was just curious if this said TCA, if there's a timeline associated with that in terms of the notification.
I'm sorry, I heard most of your question, but you asked if there was something associated with it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a timeline. In other words.
Oh, okay. There's not specifically in that statute. It just says if you're not able to, if they're not on the property, then you're supposed to do it by certified mail. That's really the only instruction or detail that statute gives as far as how to do notification.
Okay, I'm a little surprised that there isn't some response time defined, but that's okay.
Kevin, if I might respond to that, I think that it also says, Miss Erica, that you're to report it to the adjoiners when it's discovered during the conduct of the time of survey. So with respect to your question, Kevin, theoretically, this respondent, if he did the survey in 2019, should have notified the adjoiner in 2019. So that would be the way I would infer the timeline.
Jackie, any thoughts?
No, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, I think we're better.
Okay. What I said was I concur with you guys. He should have been notified. And I think that's the biggest issue here that I see.
Okay. Other members of the board, are they comfortable with the recommendation of staff of the letter of warning?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to, well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and address that. I'll certainly entertain a motion as to how to address that complaint right there. And then once we get the motion resolved, I'd like to see if any member of the board wants to take this any further. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Jay, I'll make that motion that we issue a letter of warning for failing to disclose the boundary line discrepancy.
All right, motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second are on the floor. Is there any further discussion to be made by members of the board? All right, hearing none. If I could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sounds like we've got a consensus there for passing of the motion as stated. Does any member of the board want to follow up on this. There's obviously a little bit more to the story there that was detailed by staff. So I'm certainly open to discussion. If not, we can move on to item number 2. All right. Hearing none, Ms. Smith, if we can move on to item number 2.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, 2020-089-711. A surveying and mapping business, which has offices throughout the nation, is operating 2 surveying offices in Tennessee. And respondent is actually the licensed surveyor that is the responsible charge for this business in Tennessee. And respondent did respond on behalf of that business and explained that one of the offices in Tennessee is not actually an operating business office that's open to the public. No business is done out of that office. So I had an investigator go out to that location to verify the response and make sure that that was true. And the investigator did confirm that everything was locked. There was it was not open to the public. To the best of their ability, the response did seem to be confirmed. So the business website, however, and the respondent even mentioned this in their response, acknowledged it, that maybe this might be the problem, this might be where the confusion lies. Their website basically lists an address and a phone number for all their different locations throughout the nation, and they do it by state. Well, under Tennessee, there's both locations. They explain that the phone number and the location at issue here rings to the office where the business is actually conducted, and they can understand how that might be confusing. And they brought it up that, you know, if that needs to be changed, that would be easy to do, and they would be willing to do that and understand that. And either way, my recommendation would have been to issue a letter of instruction to go ahead and instruct the business to remove the location at issue here that's not open for business from their website, so it doesn't look like there's 2 business offices in Tennessee. So I'll open it up now.
Great. Thank you, Erica. And excellent job, by the way, on your summarization of this case here. Well done. Yeah, so it sounds like we've got the classic case. We've certainly heard similar instances before of advertising of quote unquote a secondary office that either does or doesn't exist. But a couple things that stood out to me here on this particular case in the summarization was the cooperation of the respondent and the company that she works for. It looked like they weren't trying to hide anything or disclose anything. Were very upfront and timely in their responses. So I certainly appreciate that. And in some aspects I can understand the way that they're working here, but the issue is that bothers me the most, and I certainly want to hear from the other members as well, is the fact that the location itself is advertised, which would certainly, for somebody looking for professional surveying services, if they come across this particular website, would see the address, oh, that's local to me or where my project is, and certainly represents the offering of services, professional services, based on showing an address there. And that obviously is the issue here of discussion. I do like the recommendation of staff, the letter of instruction. I think that's probably appropriate here, with the understanding that it does get removed, that particular address does get removed from any and all advertising or offering of services from that particular location, unless they do come up with a secondary licensed surveyor working full-time out of that office. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. And it does sound like that the respondent is willing to work with us on removing of the address and advertising. But again, I'm open to a letter of warning, and I'll certainly throw it over to the other members of the board. Let's go ahead and start with Tim and your response.
I agree, Jay, that the spirit of cooperation was good, and So I think that a letter of instruction as recommended would be appropriate.
Thank you, Tim. Jackie, any thoughts?
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay. And Kevin?
I'm in agreement.
Okay. All right, very good. With that being said, unless there's no other further information from staff, I'll open it to a motion from other members of the board.
I'll make that motion that we go with legal's recommendation of letter instruction.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Jackie, thank you. With that, last opportunity for further discussion. And hearing none, if we could call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that, the motion as stated is passed. Ms. Erica, we'll throw it over to you for item number 3, please.
Thank you. Number 3 is 2020-092-761. And the complainant basically filed this complaint because they were having trouble. There was a delay in getting a copy of a survey that the respondent had done in 2016. And the respondent and the complainant had communicated about getting that, picking up that copy or having it sent, but the respondent fell very ill. So the respondent's son took care of this matter and made sure that the complainant was able to pick up that survey, and it has been confirmed that it's been given to the Register of Deeds and recorded, and the complainant is satisfied with that outcome, feels the issue has been resolved. So my recommendation is to close and dismiss this matter.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that recommendation. It really just seems like a communication issue there, and perhaps perhaps the complainant thought that by filing a complaint might get a little action out of the respondent. But either way, it sounds like it's been resolved, and I'm fine with that recommendation from staff of dismissal. Comments from other members of the board? Jackie? All right, how about Tim?
I'm good with the dismissal.
Okay, Kevin?
I'm good with it.
All right, I don't know that I heard a response from Kevin or Jackie there, but with that, I think we've got a general consensus there between myself and Tim. If we could.
Hey, Jay.
Yes, Jackie, go ahead.
I guess it just starts muting itself here. I said, I move that we accept the recommendation of our council and dismiss it.
Great, thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. We've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Tim, for that second. Any further discussion to be made? All right, hearing none, if we could call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay.
Yes.
All right, with that, all members approve of the motion. If we can move on to item number 4, Ms. Erica.
Thank you. Number 4 is 2019-063-091. And this matter has been discussed and presented to you guys a couple times now. The last decision the commission or the board made was to assess a $1,000 civil penalty for failure of the respondent to update their address or keep a current address on file as required. And there was no violations as far as the actual survey at issue that started this complaint based on that consent
Erica,
order.
Erica,
Yes.
we lost you there. Erica, we lost you there briefly, so you're gonna have to back up maybe a couple sentences.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. So basically, this matter was decided that we would do a $1,000 civil penalty for the respondent's failure to keep their address up to date as required by our statutes and rules. And that the consent order that I tried sending out to the respondent was not delivered. So I had our staff run a clear report, which is an investigative tool that reveals like a person's address and contact information based on public records, their utility connections. It's a very, very useful tool. So we resent the consent order by certified and regular mail, and I was able to confirm with USPS that it was delivered on October 13th, 2020, and then also sent by email to the respondent to the email address that he had used in communication with me. It showed delivered, but we have heard nothing from the respondent. I've tried contacting the respondent by phone. The respondent's license has been expired for some time now, and based on their failure to communicate with us, I think we should, and the fact they don't have an active license anymore, I feel like we have exhausted our efforts and we should close and flag this complaint. And what that means is, in the future, if the respondent communicates with the board trying to renew their license or in any way, that flag would allow the staff to contact legal, and therefore we can open this matter back up and resolve it, whether it be by him signing a consent order or having a formal hearing. But either way, we can't serve this person with any sort of notice at this time.
Okay, Erica, thank you. Great, thank you. It's an excellent summary. It's quite a lengthy case we've had in front of us, certainly before. The last thing I do recall was the civil action of $1,000. So it's my understanding, I think it's pretty clear, but I just want to clarify that the respondent has not addressed the civil penalty. Is that correct?
Correct. No communication whatsoever since in 2019.
Okay, and the current status of their license is expired?
Expired, yes. They would, as far as I know, it's been expired long enough that they would have to retest and reapply.
Okay, all right. Do we know of any evidence of the respondent actively surveying or offering services?
No.
Since when expired?
No, there has been no issues brought to this office's attention in any way related to this respondent.
Okay, so currently the issue is just that there is no return communication from the respondent. The respondent's license is expired. There is a pending civil penalty of $1,000 hanging out there. And is there any further action we can take on it?
We could move forward with a formal hearing, but there'd be serious service issues. I don't know I wouldn't know how to get a good service on this respondent with a notice.
Right.
So, but by closing and flagging it, it allows us to do it in the future if we are able to make communication with the respondent.
Okay. All right. So basically we've done everything we can. We've exhausted all efforts to reach out to the respondent with no return communication. We're basically just going to close and flag the case until we hear back from them. Is that correct?
If we do.
If we do, yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
that's true.
All right. With that being said, any thoughts from other members of the board? I'll open it up to Tim.
Well, I agree with basically what's been said. However, I would like to take it just a little further. I wish that we had a process that notified the registry of deeds in the home county of the licensee that the licensee's license has expired. And I know we do that if the board terminates the license, but it would be nice if we could notify them when it expired. However, having said that, I would like to simply make a suggestion to Miss Erica and her investigators that if in a situation similar to this, they investigate a situation where a licensee's license has expired, I think it's appropriate for an investigator to go to that licensee's courthouse in their home county and see in fact whether or not plats have been recorded on public record by the licensee after the date of their license expiration. This is a pretty common investigating tool that many other states use. And I think that it would be a good thing for our investigators to do in situations similar to this. And I think that probably follows with the spirit of the direction that you might have been going in, Mr. Kaufman, as well. But having said all of that, that's either, in one side or out the other, or food for thought, or however y'all want to look at it. But at the end of the day, with Miss Erica's struggles with this particular respondent, obviously the civil penalty is going to stay on board and doesn't go away. I would have to concur that putting this, closing it and flagging it is basically going to still be very problematic for this respondent should they decide if and when they wanted to try to become licensed again in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, excellent points there, Tim. And you're right. I do agree with this suggestion there, perhaps for some future action from investigators. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, as far as the legal counsel's recommendation, I agree with that. In regards to what Tim is saying, I think what he's saying is good, and it needs to be discussed further, and that we should bring it up at a point in the future under new business.
So noted. Kevin, any thoughts on your behalf?
No, I agree with what Jackie and Tim have said about, as far as letting the local municipality know, and also checking to see if any permits have been filed in that expired period.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Miss Erica, just one final question for clarification. I think I already have it answered, but I just want to make sure that by closing and flagging this does not stop any further action based on the respondent's history or civil penalties or his prospective renewal of his license should he choose to go that way. Is that correct?
The first part of what you said.
Erica, if I can cut in, Mr. Dillahay, we're getting a lot of feedback from your microphone. Would you please mute when you're not speaking? Thank you, sir.
There we go. That works well. Yeah, Miss Erica, just to verify, I just want to make sure that if we do proceed with the staff's recommendation of closing and flagging the case, that it doesn't prohibit any future action based on these issues we've addressed already.
That is correct. It does not prohibit.
All right, very good. All right, any other further comments? If there's not, I'll certainly entertain a motion on this if we're ready.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Kaufman, that we accept legal's recommendation to close and flag this particular complaint.
I second.
All right, moved by Mr. Lingerfeld, seconded by Jackie. Any further discussion here? All right, hearing none, if we could call the roll, please.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has been approved. I believe, Ms. Erica, unless I'm wrong, that covers all the legal reports, correct?
That is correct. That is it.
Excellent job by you, and excellent summaries, I might add. Very well done. I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out of a fine job you're doing there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please keep it up.
I will.
Michael, I think we're on to old business. Is that right? No, excuse me. The director's report. My bad.
That's okay. We can skip it if you want.
You're still show. Let's have it.
Yeah. So first it says budget report. I apologize. That should just say financial report. You'll see in the materials that were attached that I sent to you last week. The most recent financial report we have for the program, which goes through December 2020, or to the end of December 2020. Happy to entertain any questions. I'll answer those to the best of my ability. And if I don't know the answers, I will find out. There any questions regarding the budget report?
I don't know. It's not necessarily a question on my behalf, but just kind of point of notice that I believe we work on a 2-year renewal basis. So obviously there'll be a big inflow of fees that come in on the biannual renewals. And then obviously during the during the second year, we don't have that big inflow. So I'm sure if somebody were to see the inflow, outflow of cash there on the budget, that might be a question. So just to clarify that point.
That is correct. Yes, thank you.
All right, if there's no questions, I'll certainly entertain a motion for acceptance of the financial report.
Well, we don't actually, for most of everything in my report will not require a motion. These are just general updates and conversation points for you all to be aware of.
Excellent.
So the next thing I have is an update for the sunset on land surveyors. You may recall that in August of last year, we had to go to the Government Operations Committee for a hearing on a number of programs were up for sunset at that point. At that point, during the joint session hearing, we were granted a 6-year extension for the land surveyors program. That became finalized in the form of legislative recommendation just last week at the what I believe to be the last appearance we'll have to make before a sunset committee in for at least 6 years. So what that means is that this the recommendation that we be extended 6 years is now going to be put into a bill and sent to the legislature for a final vote. So
I think it's good news. Michael, it doesn't sound like there's really any issues or any concerns there as far as getting it approved.
No, there were no concerns. There were very few questions asked of us, with the exception of one representative who was curious about a property issue at his own piece of land, and he thought that I might happen to be a surveyor, which I told him I was not, and that I knew a couple of good ones, and I would put him in touch with one in East Tennessee. So.
I understand.
Yeah, so no, that was a pretty easy process, at least at this point in time. And, 6 years down the road, we'll do it all over again.
Certainly appreciate on behalf of the board. We certainly appreciate your efforts there.
No problem. Thank you. As for the expired license update, you may also remember that we had sent out a number of letters over the course of the past few months reminding people of their expiration. We now have whittled the list to 44 that are not responding. And that is, I want to say that's down from 55 from the last time we reported. We sent out that last round in between meetings and heard from a few more people, but we still have 44 people who have officially expired.
Okay, well, that's certainly good to hear. I trust that the board's administrative staff has covered everything in terms of notification to these people that we're obligated to do. Is that correct?
Oh, we've well surpassed our obligation. We're only really required to give them the one notice that comes 60 days before their expiration, and I think we've sent out now 3 or 4 have we sent out?
I think I sent out a letter to all those that had expired a few weeks ago, and that was the 4th time we'd sent out a letter to people letting them know.
Okay, so certainly gone above and beyond. Caleb, just to kind of follow up on that, were any of those letters returned, basically, unable to deliver or for whatever reason?
I had 2 letters I had to mail out, and then I had two emails that were bounced back. Everything else, I assume, was delivered.
Okay, all right. Okay, so down to 44, I guess. With those licenses being expired, Tim, I'm going to kind of consult on your expertise here of expired licensure. If I understand correctly, aren't they subject to penalty for a year? Is that right? A monthly penalty for the following year? Is that correct?
Yeah, it is our statute that's quite convoluted. Miss Erica and Miss Maria will probably chuckle about that, but yes, it's one thing to not do part of our renewal, but it's something else to not do the financial part. In the financial part, the licensee has up to 12 months that they can go before their license truly is expired. And they can recover that at any point in time by paying $20 per month, I think the statute reads.
Right.
The heartburn I've always had about it is that particular statute allows the resident to drag along and to continue to survey, and whenever it's convenient for them to pay that fee along with the $140 per year, which is $280 for the biennial renewal. So I've always been a little concerned about that, and we've talked in the past several times about potentially going back and looking at that statute, and I really feel like that we need to do that, especially on the heels that we're now doing the audit every renewal cycle. I think that with the audit, the continuing education rule and the penalty statute for the licenses, they should be married together a little more harmoniously than they currently are. And I hope that our legal team would agree with that thought.
Yeah, I certainly concur with that statement there, Tim. Okay, Michael, anything further you've got on the expired licenses?
No, sir. Sorry, I had to find my cursor. It was on my other screen. No, sir. No more for the expired licenses.
Okay, certainly appreciate your and your staff's efforts there on the notifications and keeping up with that. Excellent work there.
Thank you. Next, we have the PSI statistics. I know that you all had talked about these in the last meeting, and just to give you kind of an update where we are currently, we had 37 candidates sit for the exam, 24 passing, 12 failing, and 1 absent.
Very good. I would, just from my personal efforts, from your staff's submitting applications to me, it certainly seems like the number of applications that I've been reviewing has increased here. I mean, there's sometimes where there's multiple applications either at a time or per week, but just overall the consensus on my behalf seems to be an uptick on the applications, which is very positive.
Yeah, we'll keep sending those to you. We'll track them as best we can. But just because they apply doesn't necessarily mean that everyone sits. So we'll keep those statistics and those channels of communication open.
Michael, Tim Lingerfeld, what is the window of time for that 37 exams?
For what exams? What'd you say?
The 37 you spoke to, what is that window of time?
Oh, okay. Let me see here. I see as early as February 2020. So it appears to be the entire year of 2020.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Course PDH approval policies. Wanted to put this out there. I know this is kind of, we've talked about this a lot, at least in the meetings that I've been involved with, but we run into some issues sometimes with timely returns of things that we send out for review. And I'd like to ask the board if we could put in place just a general guideline of, if we don't hear anything back from a reviewer within 2 weeks, if we, the staff, could administratively approve something and then pass it on to you all for final approval, instead of waiting for somebody to reply. We have documented cases where it's taken upwards of a month to get these reviews back, and we feel like that's just too long.
Michael, Tim again, if I might just ask a question, would it not be more appropriate if staff sent it to the board members prior to notifying approval? I mean, let's just say, for example, let's say it was a bad course. Let's say it was about underwater basket weaving, okay, and it had no application for surveyors. And the reviewer just basically ignored it and didn't respond to that 2 weeks. Well, if the staff reviewer thought that, again, my crazy example, underwater basket weaving had something to do with surveying and they approved it, then they sent it to us for formal approval, then the sponsor or the administrator of the program would have already been notified that it was approved. Unless I'm misunderstanding your procedure, and I apologize if I am.
Well, no, our procedure would be not to approve anything that was new. We would only be approving courses that are renewals, so to speak. If it was new content or curriculum had been changed in an existing course, then we would obviously send to you all directly. However, if there were no changes in the application, then that would grant us the ability to just go ahead and do it. And I know that we've done this kind of on a temporary basis, but I'm looking for something a little bit more final.
Yeah, Michael Jay here. I think, and I think it's in the minutes that we just approved today, that we agreed at our last meeting that yes, if it is a renewal course previously approved by this board, that staff could go ahead and renew that course without consideration of board members.
That was in there, you're right. And it did have there was a line attached to that had said on a temporary basis while while virtually meeting.
Okay, I understand. And we'll get back to that here in a minute. As far as the future courses, ones that have not previously been approved by the board, I'm quite honestly, I'm all in favor of just forwarding them directly to the board members for review, similar to how we're doing the current application status. I mean, it's, ultimately it's going to come in front of us anyway. And if timing is an issue, and in today's world, timing is an issue. I mean, the PS exams, you used to wait 6 months to sign up and get approved and then take, and then you wait again for all that. And now we're down to literally days of doing it. But in today's world of electronic, transfer of data, we can certainly get those applications for PDHs sent directly to us. Either continue through the SharePoint method, which seems to work fine. Let us review it and get it back to you in a hopefully a much more timely manner.
Sure.
Because I hate holding up the vendor, anyone for that matter, but I hate that we're holding up vendors that are offering these courses to benefit the surveyors of the state, which are time sensitive, especially when we get close to renewal period, when those seem to come out more frequent. And surveyors that don't have their hours yet are starting to feel the crunch and need to get those approved. I hate to think that we're holding them up. We as a board do not need to be holding up either the vendors with their quality products or the licensed surveyors that are in need of PDHs. So I'm certainly open to going that way. I think that's what Tim was kind of going towards. Certainly want to hear from Jackie and Kevin both.
Sure. And just to clarify before we hear from them, we do send when we receive these renewals applications, we do send them a letter that states they have been passed through to the board member and that they're not fully approved until that passage, until the board meeting and final passage.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Jackie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Jay. We don't need to hold up the vendors, nor do we need to delay our surveyors from having those available to them. So, send them to the board members. The new courses, send them to the board members. I think the way we do the applications is a good idea. That I would like to see us go in that direction.
Okay, Kevin, any thoughts there?
Not really anything different from what the other board members have said. I agree with facilitating the licensees being able to get PDHs if they need those, and also the vendors getting their products out. So I'm in agreement.
Okay, very good. Michael, last question. Is it administratively, is that an issue or a problem to kind of change course a little bit there, or does that help?
No, that's everything helps. Like I said, we just got to the point where our hands were tied and we were waiting. So anything that keeps the process moving quicker and smoother is a good thing.
Okay, but if we go ahead and make this change of having the board members directly approve the new PDH opportunities, do we need to make notification of the current reviewers? Do we need to let them know that of the change that we're making?
Well, it's we'd have to look into, the thing that strikes me there would potentially be conflict of interest for any one of you all who happen to maybe know an applicant or know of an applicant's course. I think we'd have to take a look into whether or not the board could directly do that, or if the board would need to, in fact, approve a new course listing after a third-party review.
Okay, yeah, that's a valid point.
So we'll float that one to legal. I assume that's going to take a little bit of research, unless there's somebody from legal right now who might happen to know that answer. Okay.
Yeah, not hearing anything. We certainly want to allow them ample time to review that, but I do appreciate members of the board here willing to step up and take on that extra task there. And Michael, we'll just wait to hear from you as to how we proceed on that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. But for the meantime, we will continue to pass the renewals without changes directly to you all.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, I've got too many screens and too many windows open. So the last thing I have on my report would be the East Tennessee appointment, and this is just kind of a housekeeping announcement that our East Tennessee seat, currently held by Mr. Lingerfeld, his term will be expiring in June of this year. We at the board and with the governor's office will be working with all interested parties to entertain nominations for that seat.
Very good. Thank you for that information there, Michael. I think that covers all the items on the director's report, unless you have something additional to add there.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Well done. Thank you, Michael, for all that excellent information and discussion there. Moving on the agenda, I see the next item is we're going to cover is old business, with the topic being a proposed rule and technical standards changes. We as a board had brought this topic up at the last meeting, that we were going to begin a review and possible revisions to the standards, technical standards of surveying as they currently exist. And I had offered, and I think we all agreed, that I would extend the opportunity to the Professional Surveying Society, TAPS as we refer to it, to make some input on that. Michael, have you heard any information or communication from TAPS? Or has your office heard anything?
Yes, we did receive a letter. Did I not? I think I might have sent that to you all yesterday. It was short notice, and I apologize for that. We did receive an item from Mr. Cleveland at TAPS. It was a red-lined markup of the current minimum technical standards.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. I had reached out to the president of TAPS, Miss Ashley, requesting that. I think she had handed that over to one of their committees, and I think Mr. Cleveland is in charge of that committee. I'm glad to hear that they did follow up on that. My intention on that was strictly to have collectively ask them for suggested revisions for the board to take into consideration and for future discussion. I'm not going to go any further into suggested revisions today, now that TAPS has submitted that, and you said that you had distributed to us. I certainly will be looking at my email for that and ask that each of the members of the board here review that suggested changes from TAPS in their consideration for future revisions to the standards. And I do want to ask members of the board that at our next scheduled meeting to come back with what I would say in air quotes, a first draft of suggested revisions to the technical standards. And certainly ask that they do consider, obviously, the submittal made by TAPS through this board administration, and then also through local members, other surveyors, and certainly our own thoughts of suggested revisions for that. And just be prepared for probably a somewhat in-depth discussion at our next meeting for that. I don't know that we're prepared or have all the information to make those suggested changes at today's meeting, but certainly at the next meeting, I think should be ample time. Tim, any thoughts on that?
I agree with what you said, Jay. I wanted to ask Michael a question. My question is this: with this, normally, let me say it this way. In the past, when we did the last minimum technical standards modifications, the board was physically meeting, and we were actually all together in a room, and we spent time going through the items, discussing them, marking them up, and then came back at another meeting and discussed them further, and went through the entire process with legal and so forth and so on. My question is this, Michael. Since we're in a completely new environment here with WebEx meetings and not any in person, and I understand about, board member communications should not happen whatsoever. My question to you is this. Let me give you the example. If I marked up a set of minimum technical standards and I sent them to you, would it be within the confines of the board's rules for you to disseminate them to Jay and Jackie? And if they did the same thing, vice versa. And obviously you can see where I'm going with this. This would allow some level of communication via paper, PDF, to somewhat, maybe not as much hasten the process, but be able for the members, because of the gap in our meetings of 3 months at a time, that type of thing, but the members would be able to kind of see, kind of what each other's thinking type thing, and work on those items, so that when we did meet, that we could be more, I'm going to say more productive about speaking to a particular item or the entire document. And I don't know if that's the best way to pose that scenario to you or what, but I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay, so let me recap. The question really, when we get down to it, you're wanting to know if you mark up a code that the board is set to review, and you send it to me so that other members of the board, that I can then send it to the other members of the board. Is that within the rules? Is that the correct question?
Yes, sir. That's basically the gist of the question. Yes, sir.
Okay. Unless if I get this wrong, I'd hope that Maria or somebody would jump in. But my understanding is that, yes, you can send me those items and I can disseminate them to the other board members as needed. However, direct contact between yourself and any other board member would violate the Sunshine Law.
Yeah, that's my understanding of how the system works, Michael. But I certainly would like confirmation of that from legal staff.
Sorry for the delay there. I was double muted. So, but this is Maria from legal. That should be fine to process this rule amendment, just as long as you're, communicating through Michael and not directly. Should be good to go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that, Maria. It sounds like we've got some work to do, and now we kind of have a better understanding of how the process should work. Tim, excellent suggestion. Might be a little extra step there that we have to work it through admin, but that's fine. We can make that happen. And I just ask again that when we reconvene at our next meeting, that we all be prepared for hopefully a productive and efficient discussion of of the proposed changes there. Michael, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, yes, I'd like to say that we should take the information that TAPS has sent us and want them to know how appreciative we are of their efforts and use that as the basis to start our review that Tim is talking about.
Yeah, excellent suggestion, Jackie. And with that being said, I'll certainly use that as a opportunity to acknowledge that both the president and the committee chair of TAPS are present with us today. Miss Ashley, Miss Jimmy, Mr. Jimmy, excuse me. I'll certainly give both of you all the opportunity if you want, just to jump in here and say a few words if you feel like you'd like to.
Jimmy here. I just want to speak on behalf of TAPS. We appreciate the opportunity to review this and offer our suggestions, and we look forward to working with the board during this process.
Thank you, Jimmy, and certainly thank you to Miss Ashley for their willingness to extend communications from TAPS to us, and each of us will certainly take those into consideration. Okay, any further discussion on that? I think I've made it pretty clear of what it is I'm asking each board member to do for the next meeting. If there's anything further on that, if not, we can move on to the next topic.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and I apologize for this, I left it off of left it out of the course/PDH approval policies. On page 14 of your presentation, there's a list of courses for approval that I forgot to bring up during that discussion. If we could just backtrack just a little bit and close that out, I think that'd be great.
Certainly, and that's why we asked for a little flexibility on the agenda, things just like that. Okay, I trust that the other members of the board have, I think you referred to as page 14 with the list of initial applications of the PDH applicants. Is that true? Everyone has it, I hope?
Yes, sir. Should be page 14 of the presentation PDF.
Excellent. I'm going to ask that we can approve all of these by motion with the option of excluding itemized ones that perhaps we need discussion on. Is that acceptable? All right, hearing no objection to that, I trust that the members of the board have had an opportunity to review each of those listed on the initial applications as submitted from admin. Is there any items here that selectively need to be discussed by any member of the board?
Jay, it's Tim. I only wanted to make a comment in the spirit of what we did just earlier. There's 4 courses on here that I know were submitted a day or two after our last meeting in October. And, you know, we're now on them. And that just reiterates what Michael was saying about the timeliness of things. Because I know this one person has contacted me wondering what's the board's doing, and I just keep sending it to the board. But I'm certainly glad to see them before us, and I have no issue with the list and would make a motion that we approve.
Okay, very good. Good point there, Tim. And I hate to hear that it was from October, but that's the exact issue that we're trying to resolve to help out both the vendors and the surveyors. With that, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Jay, I second.
Thank you, Jackie. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that for approval of the listed initial applications? All right, hearing none, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld.
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Thanks,
All right,
gentlemen.
with that, those courses have been approved. Michael, I appreciate you catching that. That had gone past my notice as well. So I'm glad we got that taken care of.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is new business. We've got a discussion item here for
Jay.
Sir, who is that? Jackie, yes.
Yes. Hey, I think that motion was just for the initial applications. Do we need to address the renewal applications?
That is correct. That was the motion was for initials. It was my understanding that the renewal applications were going, yeah, we need to vote on those as well. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, I'll certainly entertain a motion for the renewal applications as well.
I'll move that we approve those.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Further discussion from anyone? All right, hearing none. Michael, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that, it's being approved. I'm sure glad we get a crack staff and other members of the board that are catching these things that miss my eye. So I appreciate that. All right, under new business, the PDHs for licensure renewal dash COVID-19. This is an item that I wanted to bring up for discussion today, based on some telephone calls that I had received from fellow surveyors in Western Tennessee. And it has to deal with the pending licensure renewal that, if I'm correct, will be due at the end of this year, this current year, which will be upon us in no time. Granted, that is 10, 11 months away, but it does catch up with us quick. And with that being said, in kind of spirit of PDHs that we've previously discussed in the renewal period, other surveyors were asking me this question: is the board going to alter their current PDHs required for renewal policy because of the COVID-19 situation? And I really don't know how to respond to that. Granted, we still have a shrinking window of time to make an educated response to those that are asking, but I certainly need to run this through administration and the other board members to see if there is even a consideration of it. Is there a discussion of it, or has it just not been addressed yet, and we'll have to deal with it at a later time? My biggest concern here is, as the window shrinks, we need to have a decision made here, or a notification of some sort as to how the board is going to address this in any way, whether it's remain as it is, status quo, or if there's a change to be made at all. And so I guess, Michael, I would pose the question to you: is there, as best your knowledge at this point, is there consideration for any altering of the PDHs required because of the COVID-19?
Let me see. I would actually maybe defer at this point to Maria or Caleb, because a lot of the decisions that were made regarding COVID-19 took place before I came on board. I believe that people are able to, that certain leniencies were granted for PDHs, but I would need to double check them unless somebody else knows the answer directly.
Michael, this is Maria. I will say there has been some executive orders relative to giving boards discretion, regarding PDHs and waiver of such. Now, it's been different for each board, each profession, and I will have to double check. There was talk that the executive order would be extended, so I'll just have to check on that date to see if the board would even have discretion at this point to, do a waiver. That might have been something that was in, the previous year. However, I think it's really important for the board to talk about in the land surveying profession, is there opportunity for the licensees to get their PDHs online? So that's something that, that's where the board members would be very valuable, just to kind of discuss that on the record. Because like I said, it varies by profession, and some, professions that require the continuing education, they haven't skipped a beat because they've been able just to switch to the online format. And, at the beginning it was kind of a struggle, but now it seems pretty seamless that those opportunities are still available. They're just in a virtual format. So if that executive order is in place, which I will check on for you all, it would just be at the pure discretion of the board to approve or do a blanket extension or a blanket waiver. But like I said, it's important to take into consideration whether or not that's actually necessary given the opportunities that the licensees have.
Okay, Maria, thank you for that. I can't stress enough the importance of what I keep calling the shrinking window, and the opportunity to notify the surveyors across the state of the course that we're going to take here, whether it's remain as it is and they're responsible for the full amount of PDHs, or if there's some sort of altering in that. Michael, I would ask that as your staff does come up with after their review and consideration of the executive orders of how we can proceed with that, I'm going to ask, the other board members, to obviously including myself, that we act on this as quick as we can and get a response, an official response out to those surveyors across the state that are licensed. I just can't stress how important it is. And half of it in somewhat of a selfish manner is that I'm trying to avoid issues that we encounter already, even without COVID, of the renewals and getting them on time and before the end of the calendar year, et cetera, et cetera. I think the sooner we can get this information out, the fewer headaches that we, and especially staff, are going to encounter as the renewal period gets closer, and especially after the renewal period has passed us. Any thoughts on that, Tim or Jackie or Kevin?
Well, one thing, I got a couple of calls and I have an email where one registrant was asking about the board allowing what I'm going to call regular online courses, because the way our PDHs are structured, they're basically either seat time or correspondence, or college course, basically, to generalize. So this particular registrant was asking about what we used to do before our rule changed, about just allowing just general online courses. So I just want to pitch that into the fray. I also want to say that we're in a biennial situation, so not only withstanding COVID or whatever, each registrant is aware that they had 24 months to perform. Plus, we still allow the carryover hours, and some of the registrants, for example, could have had 15 hours to carry over for 2020 from the previous cycle, and then they wouldn't even had to take any. So there are several other different scenarios than just the straight up, I need to get my course. And I just wanted to mention those.
Yeah, excellent point there, Tim. Jackie, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that given the availability of online courses, that I would lean to not changing anything, and accepting those. And like Tim said, it's a biennial renewal cycle, so people have had plenty of time to get the courses they need.
Okay, Kevin, any follow up there?
No, I was going to ask, I kind of presume that the majority of these credits are earned online or through some sort of college coursework. So my question was going to be, how much of the availability of those courses have been affected by COVID? And if it hasn't been greatly reduced, I'm not sure I would change the requirements.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just for information, a lot of the surveyors across the state acquire their PDHs at the annual TAPS conference, which is being held this year. There's some logistic issues still being worked out there, but it is being held. So the opportunity, which you mentioned there, Kevin, is available for all surveyors, honestly. But the one mass gathering and opportunity for those PDHs to be obtained all in one location is still being held. So that certainly is a positive. And Tim, you're absolutely right. They do have 24 months plus carryovers. So that's kind of, I think you see where my general feeling is on the matter. But obviously, Michael, again, I do want to stress to you and your staff that we try to get this resolved as quickly as we can and make some sort of opportunity or some sort of notice to the surveyors across the state as to how we're going to follow up on this.
Yeah, sure thing. And, we could, when we get the final word, we get it out as soon as possible.
Thank you. And whether that's by, email, regular mail, or probably just a posting on the website, some sort of, general available notification so they don't have any reason to say, well, I didn't know.
Sure. Well, we know that we've got we got 1,077 licensees at the moment, and we know that all but 2 of them have working email addresses. So we should be pretty quick on our communication.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. I know you'll follow up on it and the staff as well. Thank you for that.
No problem.
All right, any other items for new business? I don't see any listed on the printed agenda for today. If I don't hear of any, second to last item on the agenda is the PDH hours for attendance. We're looking at about 10:15 right now. Obviously I don't like to issue a quarter of a PDH hour. I'm gonna ask for a motion of a 1 hour approval unless other member has a better idea.
Mr. Kaufman, if I may ingest, I have two topics that need to be under new business.
Okay, we can certainly have it for discussion, but obviously we can't make any decisions on it, but go ahead.
Well, I'll hold that thought. One of them is the TAPS presentation for the TAPS meeting. That needs to be discussed because, you know, we're required to be in attendance and speak to it. And, you know, Michael and staff and legal need to be aware of that. And I don't know, I have not had any communications with the vice president of TAPS from the standpoint of what his plan is relative to us doing the TAPS board presentation as we have been doing for several years. So I think that topic definitely needs to be discussed because we're scheduled, I think it is scheduled to speak on March the 5th at about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and good point. And I don't know that that's really official business of the board to be discussed, but certainly pertinent for information purposes. And I'm glad to discuss what I know about it. I have had discussions with the conference coordinator / vice president of TAPS about it and the opportunities that he's affording us for our presentation to the attendees of the TAPS conference, whether it goes virtual or in person or a little bit of both. And they're certainly making every accommodation available for us to do so. I did send, and I hope, Michael, I hope you have received it. I did send an email to you about that with the information that they afforded me about, you know, whether the board itself, in terms of the presentation that's made by admin, wants to go, you know, by virtual, literally from your desk or wherever you're at, or in person. If the conference is held in person, again, there's still some logistics up in the air, but they certainly are affording us the opportunity, both as, you know, typically the administration makes a presentation and then they turn it over to the board members themselves. Michael, I'll just throw it at you and just number one, I want to make sure you have received my emails on that and see what your initial thoughts are on that.
Yeah, and I need to get a interpretation from legal, but currently, as far as travel goes, we're not authorized for travel. So until the governor changes that executive order, we'll be attending virtually.
Okay, and that's certainly acceptable. The other option was, and I failed to mention it here earlier, was a pre-recording of the information that you want to present. That certainly is an option as well. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah, and the opinion that I'm waiting on, or that I'm going to get from legal, is I need to verify that having you all on the same conference at the same time does not constitute a meeting of the board with, you know, one or more members in direct communication, potentially speaking about board-related issues. I want to make sure that we're above, you know, kind of above the line on that one. So I'm going to ask legal to interpretate that for me. And I know you all have done this in the past, so I'm sure there's probably a past ruling or something of the like.
Yeah, excellent point. And you're absolutely right. We have done this in years past. For the last several years at the TAPS conference, they've certainly been generous to afford us the opportunity to speak in front of them. I'm sure it has been consulted through legal before, but certainly I want legal to be comfortable with it as the way it's being presented this year, which, you know, is a little bit different, but I think in a generalization, it is the same as prior years, but certainly want to get that confirmation. And obviously, if there's an issue, I need to know immediately, because it will affect the schedule there of the conference.
Sure, I understand.
This is Maria. I was just going to ask, so the presentation piece, usually, you know, that's approved, that has to be approved through publication. So if there is going to be a presentation given, that probably should be done fairly soon so we can get approval just from the outside, department. But anyhow, I'm just trying to figure out like the format or what takes place between discussion of board members at the meeting, because I know with the other boards that I work with, it's very common for board members to go to conferences and for the professional associations and be in attendance. But is there a discussion of like board matters that happen with you all? I just want clarity on what exactly takes place.
Well, for Maria and Michael, I know Michael that you've not done this, and I certainly understand your concerns, and they're very legitimate. We have an exceptional blessing of having Miss Erica on board, and she was there last year. She spoke at it. She's familiar with it, and I'm sure she can still speak to it. And it's really a marvelous outreach to the licensees that attend to the association meeting. And yes, we do have specific criteria rules that were established back when Miss Roxanne was our executive director about what we can and can't talk about. The chair opens it and specifically speaks to those items so that the audience, being the licensees, do not cross that boundary, because we make it very clear to them of what we can and can't talk about.
That sounds great, Tim. That's I spent some time working at a stock fund. That sounds an awful lot like how we used to handle our public presentations for that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, Tim makes some excellent points there. I can't stress enough the importance in terms of the outreach, the appearance of outreach of this board to the registrants. Since we've gone virtual and everything is emailed these days, and names are scrubbed from reports and things like that, there really is no personal communication between us as individuals of the board and the registrants, and it's important. I think it's very important that we get this opportunity, we take advantage of this opportunity to be able to go up them and to be in front of them and make them realize it's not just the towered castle in Nashville that we're surveyors too, and we encounter the same issues and licensure issues that they do, and that we're approachable. I just can't stress enough how important that is, and the positive feedback that I get. I think the other board members would say the same, but that it's just extremely valuable. I would hate to see us miss that opportunity.
Okay, it sounds great, and with Maria weighing in, I think we're good to go, and I'd say proceed as planned, unless you hear otherwise, with the one caveat that if there is going to be a visual presentation, that we need to get that approved through our external communications guys before you send it over.
Okay, and Michael, again, I said there were still some logistic issues with the conference as to whether it's going to be held in person or virtual or a little bit of both, but and certainly I'll update you as soon as I hear that. But it does sound like that you don't have approved travel considerations. So at best, it sounds like it'll be either a video presentation, either pre-recorded or a Zoom meeting type situation. Does that sound right?
Oh, if you mean for me, no, I can attend virtually. What I meant was if you all plan to use any sort of PowerPoint, or if it's just if your portion involves any sort of slides or visual aids, those will need to be approved by our team before you're allowed to give them out to the public.
Yeah, and I agree, and I can tell you that in past our efforts in terms of the board members themselves has strictly been a question answer with no pre-planned or PowerPoints or slides or anything like that. I would assume it would be the same unless someone here thinks differently.
No, that's perfect. I mean, that's probably the best way to do it, because you can't help the questions that are asked.
Exactly.
So just to help a poor old East Tennessee boy, Michael, I'm not sure.
Who are you talking about?
Me. I don't know that you've been made aware of where the conference is. I do understand the state's rules. I'm not being disrespectful, but it's in Murfreesboro, so it's probably maybe closer to your office than your house potentially. But if the governor says you can't drive from point A to point B, I understand.
It's actually closer to my house than the office is, but we'll see. We'll see what can happen.
Because from me to you, first off, you and I never even should. We have talked on the phone, emailed, and so forth, and I would love to meet you. And I think that the licensees that in attendance would like to see a face with a name, since you're our new director.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that I'll be asking for that permission from the commissioner, especially for something that's that close and would be considered, within the area.
So that's the only reason I mentioned it. I wasn't trying to be insulting about the travel restrictions or anything like that, because it really is in a way kind of handy. And of course, I'm very biased because Miss Erica does an absolute fabulous job, and I would love to have her come too if she could. But I understand the rules.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll figure out what we can, and we'll let you all know as soon as possible.
Thank you very much.
And Tim, I would second that thought on Miss Erica. She did do an outstanding performance last year, and certainly hope and welcome the opportunity for her again this year. All right, Tim, did you say you had a second issue for discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The NCAAS Southern Zone meeting is going to be held virtual this year on April 15. So everyone will have the opportunity to attend virtually, and you'll get an invitation appropriately. However, there's one topic that I think that we should discuss while we have this opportunity of being together, since we won't have it until we meet again, which will be after the Southern Zone meeting. And there are two elections at the Southern Zone this year. My term as vice president is concluding in August. So at our Southern Zone meeting, we always do the next election. So this year we have the election for Southern Zone Vice President, of which we have three candidates, Tim Rickburn, Andy Zatwell, and Stephen Hyde. We also have an election for Assistant Vice President. Those candidates are Bobby Bally and Ivan Hoffman. So I would respectfully request, if it's within our rules, that we be able to make a decision as to which of those candidates that we collectively would support, and such that I would assume that our chair, Mr. Kaufman, would probably be the one doing the electronic voting at the April 15 meeting.
Yes, Tim, you're absolutely correct. I do anticipate on making that vote on behalf of the board at that April 15th meeting. And obviously collectively we'll need to make a decision as to how that vote or those votes will go.
And I was trying to take this as our opportunity for communication in order to do that.
Yeah, I don't see anything that would prohibit you from making that decision.
Okay. Is that something we want to take up here now, or do we need to work it through other channels?
If you would like to take it up now, I think that'd be fine. Again, if I ever give you bad information, I fully expect Maria or somebody from legal to jump in. But I believe that'd be fine to have that decision right now. Otherwise, I can do this via email and just individually get in touch with each of you regarding this topic, whichever way you prefer.
Yeah, I think the email opportunity, if we're allowed to do it that way, might be best.
Okay, that won't be a problem.
Tim, are you comfortable with that?
Hey, if that's what Michael says, that's fine.
That works for me. All right. I think that covers the two items you had mentioned before. Anybody else have other items to bring up for discussion?
I think we're down to the last item, which was the PDHs. And I think I stretched that 15 minutes to make us an hour and a half.
All right. And yeah, outstanding job. And my watch shows exactly 10:30, which I work out to be an hour and a half. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make it.
And a second. All right, motion and a second for 1.5 PDHs for today's meeting. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mr. Lingerfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Dillahay,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
All right, that motion is approved. Any last items before we hit the adjournment? All right, hearing none. As we've done in previous meetings, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion? Second?
Second.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, motion is second. I think we're all in agreement. Not hearing any opposed, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael, and all your staff. Excellent job. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.